lost another legend. We've lost another icon. A voice for every decade. A songwriter. A hellraiser. A hero. Tom Petty has passed away at age 66.
Run away, find you a lover, go away, somewhere all bright and new.
With me as always when we do the most somber of shows, it's my good friend Brad in L.A.
Steve, what's going on, man?
Well, it's been a sad week, obviously.
Yeah, it has been not a great one. I have to say, it wouldn't really feel like a wake. It would just be the two of us crying in our beers without another person. So we've asked Just Drew to join us today.
Excellent.
Good morning, gentlemen. I, like you, have a little bit of a pissed at the universe kind of feel this morning, and I have a feeling it's because of the passing of Tom Petty.
It's definitely a contributing factor.
Yeah.
It came out of nowhere, didn't it? It just... One day we're sitting there, and the next thing you know, TMZ reports that his body found he had cardiac arrest, rushed to the hospital, put him on life support, determined that there was no brain activity, and then they pulled the life support, and by the end of Monday, he was gone.
Yeah, just like that. Just like that. Oh.
Well, there was also that confusion, too, because for a while it was... Tom Petty has passed, and they're like, no, he hasn't passed, but they don't expect him to live.
Well,
and like,
yeah, that's just waiting for the shoe to drop then. It's awful.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that was the problem I had, because I had to write it up. And so I wrote up the report that, he was found and hospitalized. And then at least 10 news sources had reported he's passed away. So
yeah.
I changed it around to that he had passed away. And drove home. And by the time I got home, I'm getting texted by everybody in the world saying, your blog item is wrong. He's still alive, which...
Yeah. Like, okay, you got me on a technicality there, but yeah. I mean, we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, everybody was confused because I think when they originally said they took him off life support, people were like, oh, so he passed away.
Yeah.
Like Steve said, 10 places said he had passed. So yeah, that's verification. You can write it.
I think it was the LA police who came out and said, we can't confirm the death. And then everyone kind of
started to backpedal a little bit.
Yeah. So it was just confusing and aggravating and just kind of with all the other stuff that happened this week. Like I said, I'm kind of pissed at the universe. It's like enough already.
It's bad enough that he passed away, but the way that it was reported and the way that it rolled out, it's unsettling. Like, well, what's going on? How do I feel right now?
And especially for a man that has treated us to so many fantastic songs throughout the decades. I was having a conversation with the 80s progeny. We were talking about what makes a great group, not a great song, but a great group, because we were talking about one-hit wonders. And I said, if you can have 2 or 3 good songs, you can pretty much have a career off of that. But you look at Tom Petty, and he had so many he has so many fantastic songs, and there's a song that everyone can like. And honestly, if you don't like Tom Petty, something has gone horribly wrong in your life.
I like the cut of your jib, Just Drew.
It's funny you say that, because back in the 80s, the mid-80s, when I was really trending towards punk music and new wave music and anything that sounded alternative and anything that was mainstream by my group of friends was really frowned upon. But one of the coolest one among us, my friend Tom, he owned a record store. And
instant credibility right there.
He was a Tom Petty fanatic. And he loved all the same bands that we loved. But he was a Tom Petty fanatic. And he was the one who kind of urged me, go and listen. Just forget the whole idea that he's not some goth musician from England and he's not using synthesizers. Just listen to the songs. Mm-hmm. And so I did, and instantly became a fan again.
Yeah.
When was the first? Do you remember any? Does any of you remember the first time you became aware of him?
I can't say the first time I really heard one of his songs that I would realize that was Tom Petty. I think probably one of the earliest ones I remember though was American Girl.
God, it's so painful for something that is so close, it's still so far reach. Oh yeah, alright, take it easy baby, make it last all night. She was an American girl.
Steve, see, I had that same kind of take on Tom Petty, but I didn't have a cool friend that owned a record store to steer me right. So it was just like, oh, that's just, whatever. That's like, rock and roll from some guy from the South. But then when Don't Come Around Here No More, when the video came on MTV, this guy, not only is the song great, but they're hilarious. Like, this sense of humor, the darkness and the humor of that video is just fantastic. And actually, Steve, you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier this week about, is there an artist who had success in the 70s, was an established player from the 70s, who had a better transition to the MTV era than Tom Petty?
Nobody.
No.
He had so many great videos. You Got Lucky is amazing. Who does Dystopia better than Tom Petty? Nobody. He was like the earliest steampunk guy ever. Don't Come Around Here No More it's a classic.
Don't feel you anymore. You gotta take and go. Whatever you're looking for. Hey! Don't come around here no more. I've given up. Stop. I've given up. Stop.
Yeah.
He made that jump like nobody else I can think of.
It's funny you mentioned Don't Come Around Here No More. That is probably my all-time favorite Tom Petty song, but not for the reason of the video, which I absolutely loved, but because it helped me get through a breakup. I was seeing this girl, and it was a real toxic relationship, lots of lying.
Yeah.
But we would get back together, then we'd break up, and then we'd get back together. And Don't Come Around Here No More with the lyrics, I didn't want her to darken my door anymore. I didn't know what she was looking for. I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't go through back and forth. And so that song really helped me get out of a relationship and get the strength to stay out of the relationship.
Kind of get your head around like, no, I really am done with this. I am done.
Exactly. And it was just those lyrics of kind of, standing up for yourself as how I saw it, of being like putting your foot down and saying, I can't do it. This is it. You're done. And so that's why it's always been one of my all-time favorite songs. It sends me right back to that late 80s when this was all happening. It was just like, I had to get through it. And so I love that song.
Yeah, I mean, there's breakup songs, and then there's this kind of breakup song, which is like, look, I'm taking it back. It's not about you anymore.
Brad, do you have a song that reminds you of a story?
Yeah, actually, one of my favorite Tom Petty songs is Even the Losers.
Well, it was nearly summer. We sat on your roof. Yeah, we smoked cigarettes and we stared at the moon. And I showed you stars you never could see. Bet I couldn't been that easy to forget about me.
I didn't really know this song until I started taking guitar lessons, and my teacher's like, here, let's start out working on this, and I'm kind of playing it. One of the things that learning how to play guitar really opened my eyes to a little bit was the songwriting craft and the musical craft of some of these guys. I wasn't really a huge Tom Petty fan. I'm certainly aware of his work. You can't not be. But once I started looking at the way his songs are put together, like, they're just so tight and so well crafted. But this song just has the kind of, it's another breakup song, but the even the losers get lucky sometime. Just the lyrics of it. Actually, every time it gets to the break where it says, God, it's such a drag when you live in the past, I'm like, well, no, hey, wait a minute about that. Just, easy there, killer. But again, his lyrics are so great. It just paints this picture, tells a story. You know exactly what that kid's going through. By the end of the first verse, you're like, I can picture this guy. I know who he is. I know where he's at. It's amazing.
I think I first got turned on to him, before I became somewhat hip. Was I remember in middle school and maybe my freshman year in high school, people were wearing the Damn the Torpedoes shirts. And depending on what kind of day the principal was having, he would you might have to turn your shirt inside out for the rest of the day because
torpedoes.
There were certain things that,
I was in a U-boat in the war, man.
Right. Somebody successfully made the argument that it was a nod to our history class. And
Oh, my
he
God.
actually got to keep his shirt on
That's
right
funny.
that day. I think that was a good day for the principal. But I remember distinctively the two shirts you were not allowed to wear, and you would get them turned inside out immediately. One was "Damn the Torpedoes," and one was the Jack Daniels label T-shirt,
funny.
which was real popular back then, at least down here in Florida.
I love when they used to be able to market hard liquor to children. Let's make this shirt in kid sizes.
It's funny because I mean,
I never thought about that.
my girlfriend at the time, my very first girlfriend, Jeanette,
Damn, you had a girlfriend in
gave
junior
me
high? Baller.
yeah, 8th grade, and she gave me for my birthday. She gave me a Jack Daniels T-shirt, and I took it home and showed it to my mom, and she's like, "Yeah, we're going to make a pillow out of that." So she stuffed it and made it into a pillow and put it on my bed. So I mean, I don't know what's worse.
Always practical.
Let me wear it.
Let you wear it, let you sleep with it.
I had it
That's
for
funny.
years. Has anyone here seen the documentary Running Down a Dream?
I've seen half of it. It is very long.
Right. It's on Netflix right now.
It's on Netflix?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fantastic, but it is like seemingly 4 hours long.
No, not seemingly 4 hours long. It is 4 hours long. And I got to tell you, I sat down to watch it and I'm like, oh my God, this is 4 hours. There's no way I'm getting through this. And the first 15 minutes, I'm like, screw that. I'm watching this. I mean, it gets its hooks in you so fast. And he's such a likable guy. He's very unassuming and he just kind of lays stuff out there. It's really, really well done.
I was touched a lot by the fact that they spent a lot of time. The documentary starts with Tom Petty taking the stage in Gainesville, Florida, which is where he was born and raised. He returned in 2006 for a concert. I mean, he'd been there a couple of times before then, but 2006 he returned and they taped the concert in high def. And you see parts of this concert throughout the documentary, but it spends a good, half hour in Gainesville before it moves on.
Just setting things up, yeah.
Right. And how that city influenced him. How most of his band members were from Gainesville or the surrounding areas. And that was really important to me when I went to Florida in 85. I mean, Tom Petty was long gone by then. He'd moved on to L.A. I think he did that like in 1976,
Mid-70s,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, it was mid-70s.
But, his shadow remained. And one of the places he really cut his teeth was a bar called Dubs. And they mention it in the documentary. And I think they show some clips. You might actually hear some music of him performing as the band Mudcrutch back then. That was the name of his band.
Yeah.
And so when I go there in 85, Dubs is still open.
Nice.
I mean, it's on its last legs, but it's still open. And it's way the hell out of town. If I recall, it's just north of town. I mean,
probably had to be
Gainesville's
outside the city limits.
Gainesville's a pretty spread out town. The drinking age had just changed in Florida from 19 to 21. And my roommate was grandfathered in, and I had a mustache, as has been previously established.
Yes.
Documented fact.
So I didn't get carded too often.
If you haven't seen it, go onto the website and look. It's there.
Yeah. I didn't get carded very much in those days. So he's telling me about Dubs. He said, we got to go to Dubs. It's where Tom Petty got started. He was a huge Tom Petty fan. So we go there, and he's just like in awe. Like, oh, my God, we're in Dubs. Yeah. This is where it all started.
Sacred ground.
Yeah. And I was not maybe quite as enamored at the moment, but it was packed because it was miniskirt night.
Oh, tell me more.
Or miniskirt contest.
80s miniskirt night.
Miniskirt contest night.
There are no losers in a miniskirt contest. That's all I'm saying.
Even the losers get lucky sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Nice callback, Spears. God, that was so professional.
So I'm like, well, I don't understand. Why are we going to I don't really want to see miniskirts. Turns out you don't really see miniskirts for very long. They would start playing a song. I guarantee you they were playing a couple of Petty songs that night. But they would start the song, and literally all the clothes just went woof, like off before they reached the chorus.
I told you this place was outside the city limits.
Yeah. I just remember it was so packed that I'm sitting on the floor Indian style, which I'm sure if I did now would kill me. And we're able to drink beer because no one's giving me a hard time. And
oh my gosh,
watching naked women prance around in the bar where Tom Petty, got famous. So it was.
I miss the 80s. Damn it, I miss that.
Where's all the good cavorting gone these days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's a song that really gets me, there's two. One is called Change of Heart, and it's an early one, but it has a guitar hook that just blows me away. And it's a song that you never hear on the radio unless you listen to Tom Petty Radio on Sirius XM, which I do, which is a fantastic channel, by the way. It's not only just his music, but it has what they call Tom's Treasure Chest, where he plays songs that he liked when he was growing up.
Yeah, that was great. He curated stuff, and just like he would find stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
That.
Yeah.
Change of Heart, man, just blows me away.
There's been a change. Yeah, there's been a change of heart. There's been a change. You pushed just a little too far. Made it just a little too hard. There's been a change of heart.
You know what else turns me on is when you watch that documentary, it has so many other musicians talking about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. You see Stevie Nicks talking about how she would have left Fleetwood Mac to go join the Heartbreakers if they had asked her to.
Yeah. Tom Petty is like, there aren't any girls in the Heartbreakers.
And
if there was going to be one, it would be Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, I mean,
let's be honest.
she was seriously fangirling over Tom Petty.
Yeah.
And then the other one that stands out, and not someone who was real high on my radar, and I had no idea he was a fan, but Eddie Vedder was a huge Petty fan. And there's a video circulating around on YouTube, and I think they show it in the documentary too. You can see Eddie singing along with the Heartbreakers to The Waiting.
Oh, baby, don't it feel like heaven right now? Don't it feel like something from a dream? Oh, I never known nothing quite like this. Don't it feel like tonight might never be again? Baby, we know better and try and pretend. Honey, no one could have ever told me about this. I said,
his voice is unbelievable. You could tell he's influenced by Petty.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because there were so many of those grunge bands that were fans of Petty's. I mean, one of my favorite songs is actually, it's a later song called You Don't Know How It Feels.
So let's get to the point. Let's roll another joint. Let's head on down the road. There's somewhere I gotta go. And you don't know how it feels. You don't know how it feels to be me.
Tom Petty performed it on Saturday Night Live, and Dave Grohl from Nirvana and also now Foo Fighters, he was doing the drums for him for that performance.
Cool.
And I'm not sure that the Saturday Night Live crew even knew, because they never once cut to a close-up of Grohl on the drums. He's actually kind of hidden back there. If you watch the video, you barely even get to see him. It's crazy.
I think that was right when the band was going through a change in drummers, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
They didn't really have somebody, and they had that appearance. And I think Tom called him and said, "Hey, you want to sit in for us on Saturday Night Live?" Like, yeah, okay,
get you
sure.
Scale. Okay. Yeah. So
That's amazing.
you mentioned that concert footage that's in the documentary. And
right.
The Tom Petty song that just gets me every time. I love his solo song "You Wreck Me," which is off of Wildflowers. It's a solo album from the early '90s, so give me an exemption for talking about it. But that song, I love that song.
Now and again, I get the feeling, well, if I don't win, I'm gonna break even. Rescue me, should I go wrong? If I dig too deep, if I stay too long. Oh, yeah. You wreck me, baby. Yeah, you break me in two. But you move me, honey. Yes, you do.
The album version is fantastic, but this version when he plays it in concert, it's got this extended section in the middle where it just kind of quiets down and everybody gets a little bit of a solo, and then he's standing at the mic. It all just kind of comes down really quiet, and then he starts up the last verse, "I'll be the boy in the corduroy pants," and it just, I'm watching this and I just broke down.
I'll be the boy in the corduroy pants. You'll be the girl at the high school dance. Come with me wherever I go. You just play dumb, whatever you know.
That's him naked in front of the audience. He's putting everything of himself into that lyric and putting it out there. And I was just like, oh, I just barely could take it. I love that song.
Yeah, I've watched the documentary like 3 times now this week. I think
You got to watch that first 5 minutes just for that. Oh my gosh. Oh,
God, he's just a master. Who here has seen him in concert? Anybody?
I have not.
I haven't.
I saw him back in 2008. And the date will become meaningful in a minute. He was playing Tampa, and I was still there. And the podcast at that point, I think, was about 3 years old. And I went on a date. I was newly single, just gotten separated from my second wife. And I had these tickets. And so I asked this girl, I always thought we were kind of friends, but I always kind of hoped we'd be more. And, you know, who's going to turn down a concert ticket to Tom Petty? And so she was enthusiastic. And so she went, and we just had, I mean, it was one of those magical nights where it's like you're at this concert that you think's going to be good, but it's phenomenal, you know, and Mike Campbell is just knocking it out of the park. Every song, even the ones, the 2 songs by Tom Petty you don't like, even those sound like you know, the end of the world.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's so
at one point she puts her like head on my shoulder, and I'm like, oh my God, this is actually going to happen. This girl actually maybe likes me. Maybe this is going to happen. And the night ended, and I was in full Spearsy chicken shit stage at that point. And I didn't go for a kiss or anything. I don't know why I didn't. I just was like, I still thought of myself. Cool. Yeah, I thought I was in the friend zone, and I just didn't want to do that. But I was in love. I mean, I'll just say it right now. I was in love with her. I was just like, I would do anything, but I just didn't want to ruin the friendship. So,
oh man,
fast forward like a week, and what happens about that time? Steve Spears goes to Las Vegas.
Oh,
for the first time.
You're kidding. Oh.
I go to Las Vegas with the Stuck in the 80s gang. I meet Vegas Girlfriend.
Yeah.
So I'm with it, Vegas Girlfriend, and I come back from the trip. I'm all, you know,
tingly,
just tingly and feeling
Giddy.
great. The girl calls me. I told her about Vegas Girlfriend, and she starts crying.
Oh.
And I'm like, what? She's like, I thought that was the beginning of something. I thought we were, you know, I thought that, and I'm like,
Oh, Steve.
Now I feel worse.
Steve.
I felt so bad.
How's the Spearsy
And of course,
know?
Vegas Girlfriend only lasted about 9 months, and by the time the 9 months was over, she was in a long-term relationship at that point, and there was we've never been able to put together since. So I was actually going to go with her again. Tom Petty on this last tour was coming through Tampa, and she bought tickets and asked me to go with her. And I forget what the reason was, but partly because I didn't want to be dragged through that.
Yeah. Like, let's not go to that spot again.
So I didn't, and now I'll never get to see him again.
You know, we talked about when he launched this tour that this is probably going to be his last big tour. Prophetic on that count, Steve. But I thought, well, okay, he's playing Hollywood Bowl. It's a great venue. Probably ought to try and go see it just because I should, right? Well, that was the weekend that we were in Massachusetts to see Cameron. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to be out of town. Well, I'll catch him some other time. Not so much.
Yeah, I drive by the Hollywood Bowl to go home pretty much every night. So I always look at the calendar on my phone as I'm walking out to my car to see if the Bowl has a show, because if it does, then I try and take an alternate route.
Yeah, sure.
Because traffic is a mess
there.
Yeah. Steve, you've seen it. It's right off the freeway.
Yeah,
it's the only exit right into Hollywood. It's just terrible. So I always try to take a secondary route. And I look at my phone and I see Tom Petty's playing at the Bowl. And it was one of those, because again, I don't ever check ahead of time. I only check that day. And I'm like, oh man, I would really like to see Tom Petty. I should have gotten tickets. I'll get it the next time he comes to town.
Yeah.
And, and then he passes and I'm like, you're such a dumbass. And is it wrong I think maybe this might be the first time I really realized, like, if I have a chance to see a band that I've been wanting to see,
You see them.
I better get my ass out there to see them.
Yeah.
It's that point of getting older and realizing that shit. You're just like, man, I can't procrastinate on that stuff anymore. I've got to get out there and do it. Since then, I've been listening. I don't know about you guys, but I immediately, when I found out he passed, I downloaded a Spotify list and I've been listening to all these different songs. And one of the things that caught my attention was there's times when Tom Petty sounds like Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band. There's other times it sounds like Elvis Costello. But the thing about Tom Petty that struck me was that while he may sound slightly like those other bands, they all sound uniquely like Tom Petty. He was such a unique voice in American rock and roll.
Yeah.
And we've lost that. And I think that's, again, why I started off saying I'm just pissed at the universe right now.
Yeah. Well, he gave us 5 albums in the 80s. If you count Damn the Torpedoes, which I will, because it was released in October 1979. And we didn't turn our T-shirts upside down for nothing.
Damn straight.
Hard Promises came out in 81. Long After Dark, 82. And that's such a bygone era when artists would just put out albums every year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what the label expected of you, right?
Yeah. Southern Accents, 1985, and Let Me Up, I've Had Enough from 1987, which we've talked about on the podcast before.
Yeah.
Southern Accents, the song itself, Johnny Cash did a version of it on one of Cash's last albums.
Yeah.
And if you know, I mean, when he did those albums, he did a lot of covers and he basically stole those songs from all those other artists, but he didn't Southern Accents. Tom Petty's is still the better version of that song. It's just, I think there's a connection to that Petty brings that Johnny Cash actually just couldn't touch.
There's a dream I keep having where my mama comes to me, then kneels down over by the window and says a prayer for me. I got my own way of praying, but everyone's begun with a southern accent where I come from.
I mean, that's so much his song, him talking, that you can't. I've heard that version, and it's okay, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's more an homage than a cover in a lot of ways, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another song that we haven't touched on yet, and I think that people would string us up if we don't, is Free Fallin'.
I wanna glide down over Mulholland. I wanna ride her name in the sky. I'm gonna free fall out into nothing. Gonna leave this world for a while. I'm free falling now. I'm free falling.
He wrote that with fellow Wilbury member Jeff Lynne, and the lyrics, she's a good girl, she loves her mama. He wrote that just to try to make Lynne laugh. He was trying just to screw with him because Lynne was like, hey, we have so many of these serious songs. Let's try and do something a little goofy. And in the end, he still turns it into this amazing song with all these tributes to Los Angeles and the video that was out here that, I recognize. Matter of fact, I've even eaten at that hot dog place. It is right there on Ventura Boulevard.
Yeah.
I got my very first ever deep fried Twinkie there.
You can't say you have to say it. Ventura Boulevard.
Ventura Boulevard.
What a lovely singing voice you have, Drew. I'll let them know you're available. One of the things that I think really makes a Tom Petty song, they come out and they open and it's like, you know exactly what it is from downbeat. And one of those I think is Learning to Fly. It just comes right at you, and it's such a great song. The lyrics, I'm like, I'm not sure what's going on in this song. Is the world ending? Are we happy? Are we sad? I don't know. I don't care. It's this great Tom Petty jam, and I'm gonna turn it up, and I'm gonna roll down the windows. I'm gonna sing along, and life is good for 3.5 minutes.
Well, the good old days may not return, and the rocks might melt, and the sea may burn. I'm learning to fly, but I ain't got wings. Coming down is the hardest thing. Did you see that he, where the lyrics "Learning to Fly" came from?
No.
He was watching the news one day while he was trying to write songs, and he heard this guy who was learning to be a pilot, and they asked him, "Is it hard to learn to fly?" And he goes, "No, it's coming down that's hard." And that's exactly. He was just like, "Huh," and that stuck in his head.
Flying not a problem. Landing more difficult.
Yeah. That song is actually, it comes on the movie Elizabethtown.
It all comes back to Elizabethtown.
Yeah, it's always back to Elizabethtown. My favorite Cameron Crowe movie. And that movie probably has like 60 songs in it, but it actually has 2 Petty songs in it, and I bet nobody can remember the other one. Well, I bet no one here has actually seen Elizabethtown.
Yeah, that's the problem I have seen. But I know Cameron Crowe used a lot of Petty songs in his stuff.
Yeah, the other one was one of my favorite songs. It's called "It'll All Work Out."
She wore faded jeans and soft black leather. She had eyes so blue they looked like weather. When she needed me, I wasn't around. That's the way it goes. It'll all work out.
Yeah, I remember you talked about this on another show. This is a great song.
I know. There's 5 or 10 Petty songs that will instantly trigger the Waterworks in the Spearsopian dystopia that I live in. This is one of them. Just I love when a song is broken down and simple, and it just has a meandering pace to it. To me, that's, you can really focus on the little things. And he was so, as good as he is with a great hook, he could be equally great with these slow studies.
Yeah. Did you see that also that his guitar teacher was Don Felder from the Eagles?
No.
Yeah.
Huh.
Growing up, that's who taught him how to play guitar.
Wow.
I can't believe I didn't know that. It's bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, again, I did a lot of searching of his stuff this week. So, yeah.
Well, I think back just briefly to "It'll All Work Out." Again, I think that's an example of how good he is at writing songs, writing the lyrics to songs, because it's just it just feels so honest, and he's so bare and exposed. It's just either he's really putting himself out there, or he is a really good liar.
Well, I think like a lot of people from the South, I think he's very humble in that regard. Where I don't think he likes to boast that much, but I think he spent. I think I've read that he pretty much spent part of every day writing songs or working in the studio. I mean, that was what he did for fun.
But one of the things that Brad said about the lyrics is they're deceptive, because you think that he's not as poetic, but then he would drop these lines that every once in a while you'd hear it and you think, oh my God, that's absolutely beautiful. When he talked about, I think it's Rebels, where he talks about the girl's eyes being blue, just like the weather.
Yeah,
that's "It'll All Work
beautiful.
Out, isn't it? Isn't that "It'll All"?
Oh, does it all work out?
Yeah, that's a great. You're right. I noticed that today when I heard it too. That's just like, that's just a great. I love that stuff.
It's beautiful.
And so I guess we reach the end here, and we look for some sort of elusive wisdom that will ease the emptiness that we all feel these days. I don't have those words, and I don't have that wisdom. So maybe what we should do is just pour a glass full of Southern Comfort and make a silent toast to the Head Heartbreaker. And we just kind of give a knowing nod that Tom Petty thought about rock and roll in a certain way. He said he thought of it as a religion, not an art form, Certainly not commerce or career, something deeper than all that, a religion, an institution that commemorates birth, life, and ultimately death. Tom gave one final interview with the Los Angeles Times that was conducted just days after he and his band finished their 40th anniversary tour, and it turns out it was just a few days before his death. He and his band had finished it all with a bang. 3 sold-out shows at the Hollywood Bowl. A fitting finale for a man born in Gainesville, Florida, but who always thought of himself as an artist adopted by the city of L.A. Tom's words about rock and roll will have to serve as his final words on rock and why he devoted his life to music. He said, I quote, "It was about moving people and changing the world, and I really believed in rock and roll. I still do." He continues, "I believed in it in its purest sense, its purest form. I'm just trying to get the best I can out of it, as long as it remains holy." Unquote. You made rock and roll something we could worship, Tom. Rest in peace. And if you can't do that, then raise a little hell.